Let's take a look at one of our Your Credit Matters segment today, being brought to you by rsrdebtfree.com, rsrdebtfree.com. And want to talk to you, how are FICO scores calculated? And this is part of the information coming out from our friends. Now, we get this from myfico.com, but it is also one of the data points that our friends over at First Home IQ use all the time. And again, take that quiz. It's First Home IQ, rsrlinks.com/FHIQ, rsrlinks.com/FHIQ. Go and take that quiz. It only takes a few minutes. What is my FICO score? Calculated using many different pieces of credit data in your credit report. The data is grouped into 5 categories. Payment history, that's 35% of your score. Amounts owed, 30%. Length of credit, 15%. New credit, 10%. Credit mix, 10%. Let's dig deeper. So the FICO score is considered both positive and negative information in your credit report. The percentages that we just talked about reflect how important each of the categories is in determining how your FICO scores are calculated. The importance of these categories may vary from one person to another. We'll cover that in a minute. The importance of credit categories varies by person. Your FICO scores are unique, just like you, calculated based on the 5 categories that we talked about. But for some people, the importance of these categories can be different. For example, scores for people who have not been using credit long will be calculated differently than those with a longer credit history. In addition, as the information in your credit report changes, so does the evaluation of these factors in determining your FICO scores. Your credit report and FICO scores evolve frequently. Because of this, it's not possible to measure the exact impact of a single factor in how your FICO score is calculated without looking at the entire report. Even the levels of importance shown in the FICO scores chart are for general population and may be different for different credit profiles. Your FICO scores only look at information in your credit report. Your FICO score is calculated only from that information. However, lenders may look at many things when making a credit decision, such as your income, how long you have worked at your current job, and the kind of credit you are requesting. What do FICO scores ignore? They don't look at your income because it's not part of your FICO score. What's on the report? Well, only that which is reported, but it must be complete, it must be accurate, it must be verifiable. If it is not complete, accurate, and verifiable, it must be removed. So let's look at the different categories. Payment history, 35%. The first thing to remember that any lender wants to know is whether you've paid past credit accounts on time. This helps a lender figure out the amount of risk it will take when extending credit. This is the most important factor in your FICO score. Amounts owed, 30%. Having credit accounts and owing money on them does not necessarily mean you're a high-risk borrower with a low FICO score. However, if you are using a lot of your available credit, this may indicate that you are overextended, and banks can interpret this to mean that you are a higher risk of defaulting. Remember, manage this correctly. Go to rsrccpayment.com, rsrccpayment.com, and you can find out how to pay your credit cards the right way for FICO, for credit utilization and FICO scoring purposes. How do you calculate your credit utilization? Simply divide the amount owed by the credit limit. $1,000 owed, $2,000 limit. That's a 50% utilization. Not going to be the best results for you. Do it again. $1,000 owed, $10,000 limit, 10% utilization. That's going to be an enhancement to your score. $9,000 owed on a $10,000 card, 90% utilization. That's going to have a negative impact on your FICO score. Moving on. Length of credit history, 15%. In general, having a longer credit history is a positive for your FICO scores, but is not required for a good credit score. Your FICO scores take into account how long your credit accounts have been established, including the age of your oldest account, the age of your newest account, and an average age of all of your accounts. How long specific credit accounts have been established, how long it's been since you used certain accounts. Again, we show you how to make sure you keep your credit cards and your trade lines active rsrccpayment.com, rsrccpayment.com. Credit mix, 10%. FICO scores are going to consider that your mix of credit cards, retail accounts, installment loans, finance company accounts, and mortgage loans. Don't worry, it's not necessary to have one of each. Ideally, credit mix, 1 mortgage, 2 installment, 3 credit card. Not precise, but just an idea for you. New credit. This is the only one people talk to me about when they call. And it only accounts for 10% of your score. I don't want you to run our credit, Ron, because it's going to hurt my credit score. It only accounts for 10% of your score. Your score ranges from 300 to 850. That's 550 points. This only accounts for 55 at the most. 850 less 550 less 55. Let's see, that comes out to 795. Excellent, excellent credit score. So it's not the most important part. It's the least important. Research shows that opening several credit accounts in a short amount of time represents a greater risk, especially for people who don't have a long credit history. So again, different items there for you. That's how FICO scores are calculated. And again, 2 different resources in there if you want to get them on here. rsrccpayment.com, rsrccpayment.com, and also take the First Home IQ quiz, rsrlinks.com, rsrlinks.com/FHIQ. That is Your Credit Matters, brought to you by rsrdebtfree.com, rsrdebtfree.com.